Ford's muscle car history isn't just about Mustangs and Thunderbolts. It's littered with oddballs that make you wonder what the designers were drinking at lunch. Some were brilliant, some were disasters, and some were so bizarre they've been quietly erased from memory. But they all share one thing: they're unforgettable once you've seen them. Ever heard of a Ford built for NASCAR that looked more like a spaceship than a streetcar? Let's dig into the weirdest Fords you never knew existed, and one that was killed before it even got a chance. 1971 Ford Falcon GTHO Phase 4 prototype. If there's one Ford muscle car that lives more in whispers than in garages, it's the Phase 4. This wasn't just rare, it was dead before it could even live. In the early 70s, Ford Australia was dominating Bathurst with its Phase 3 Falcons, and the Phase 4 was set to be the next step in that domination. 4 prototypes were built. 4. That's it. Under the hood, Ford stuffed in a monstrous 351 Cleveland V8, tuned for racing, mated to a close-ratio 4-speed manual. This was not a car for Sunday drives. It was built to flatten the competition. It had flared guards, race suspension, and a stripped-down interior aimed at saving weight. Everything about it screamed racetrack first, road second. But then came the supercar scare. In 1972, the Australian press freaked out over manufacturers selling near-race cars to the public. Politicians piled on, warning these were bullets on wheels aimed at young drivers. Public backlash hit hard. Ford pulled the plug instantly, scrapping production plans. Today, those 4 prototypes are among the most valuable Australian Fords on the planet, with price tags that could buy you a mansion. The weird part? Most people outside of muscle car circles have no idea it even existed. It's a ghost car, a reminder of what happens when politics slams the brakes on pure horsepower dreams. 1972, Ford Gran Torino Sport Fastback with sports roof delete. Now here's something strange. You walk into a dealership in 1972, you see the sleek Gran Torino Sport Fastback, a car designed for that long, flowing roofline, and you say, yeah, take the sporty roof off. That's what the Sports Roof Delete option did. It removed the very thing that gave the Torino Sport its muscle car swagger, replacing it with a more formal, upright roofline from the sedan. Why would anyone do that? Theories range from customers wanting more headroom to dealers trying to clear oddball inventory. Whatever the reason, the result was a muscle car that looked like it had gone to a strict private school. From some angles, it worked. From others, it looked like the roof belonged on another car entirely. Mechanically, you could still get the same powertrains as the standard Sport Fastback. Everything from a small block 302 to the massive Ford 29 Cobra jet. But visually, it was a car with an identity crisis. Imagine pulling up next to a regular Sport Fastback at a light. Same growl, same stance, but your roofline made you look like the cautious cousin. Very few were ordered this way, and spotting one now is like finding a misprinted baseball card. Collectors debate whether they're desirable oddities or ugly mistakes. Either way, they're proof Ford was willing to let you get weird if you asked, sometimes to the point where the result doesn't make any sense. 1975 Ford XB Falcon John Goss Special. If you've ever seen a muscle car that looks like it rolled out of a highlighter factory, you've probably stumbled on something like the John Goss Special. This was Ford Australia celebrating driver John Goss's Bathurst 1000 win by taking a regular XB Falcon hardtop and going wild with paint and trim. The main body came in bold shades like Emerald Fire or Apollo Blue, while the bonnet, roof, and lower body wore contrasting white. Add bright orange stripes, and you had a car that was impossible to miss in a parking lot. Inside, you got plush bucket seats, sporty trim, and a badge that screamed John Goss Special, so you'd never forget why your car looked like a sports team uniform. Performance-wise, it wasn't all show. Buyers could get the 302 or 351 cubic inch V8, giving anywhere from respectable grunt to proper muscle. But here's the twist. Despite its race-inspired name, the John Goss Special was more about style than lap times. It was a celebration piece, not a track weapon. Only a limited number were built between 1975 and 1976, which makes them collectible now. The weirdness lies in its purpose. A flashy street car commemorating a race win, sold mostly to people who would never take it near a track. Think of it as a victory parade you could drive every day, even if you'd never turned a wheel in anger at Bathurst. 1978 Ford Mustang II Stallion Package. The Mustang II already divides opinions like few other Fords. Born in the wake of the oil crisis, it was smaller, thriftier, and nowhere near as wild as its 60s predecessors. But Ford wasn't ready to let the Mustang name drift completely into commuter car territory, so they came up with the Stallion package. What was it? A purely cosmetic option that made your mild-mannered Mustang II look like it was ready for a street fight. You got blackout trim on the grille and window moldings, color-keyed bumpers, unique tape stripes, and Stallion badging that suggested far more horsepower than you actually had. Under the hood, that depended on what you ordered. The base 2.3-liter four-cylinder wasn't fooling anyone, and even the optional 302 V8 was choked by emissions gear, delivering underwhelming performance. This was the definition of all hat, no cattle. Still, the Stallion package has a charm today. It's pure 70s attitude, a time capsule from when style sometimes mattered more than speed. Collectors hunt them mostly because so few survived without losing their graphics or trim. And honestly, in a world of performance-first muscle, there's something oddly refreshing about a car that never pretended to be the fastest. It just wanted to look the part. 1969 Ford XL GT Y Code 428 Cobra Jet. Here's a curveball, a full-size luxury coupe that could embarrass smaller muscle cars at the lights. The 1969 XL GT was part of Ford's personal luxury line, a big two-door cruiser with chrome for days and comfort to match. But tick the Y code box on the order form, and suddenly you had a 428 Cobra Jet under that long hood. This wasn't some detuned engine for heavy cars. It was the same brutal big block found in Mustangs and Torinos, pumping out serious torque. Paired with a heavy-duty C6 automatic or a 4-speed manual, it gave the XL GT unexpected street muscle. From the outside, you'd never guess it. The XL GT wore formal lines, hideaway headlights, and an upscale interior with deep pile carpet and wood grain trim. It was built to cruise quietly down the boulevard, not blast down a drag strip, which made it the perfect sleeper. Production numbers were low, partly because most buyers didn't associate big Fords with muscle. The Y-code cars remain rare, and spotting one is like seeing a tuxedo hiding a heavyweight boxer. The weirdness? It's a car that looked like it should be valet parked at a country club but could light up the rear tires without breaking a sweat. 1974 Ford Maverick Grabber with Sprint Decor Group. The Maverick was Ford's answer to compact imports in the early 70s, a small, affordable car aimed at practicality. But every so often, Ford's styling department got restless. Enter the Grabber trim, which already added stripes, spoilers, and sportier touches. Then came the Sprint Decor Group, a limited-time patriotic package in bright red, white, and blue. On paper, it was just an appearance option. In reality, it turned an economy car into a rolling 4th of July parade. The body wore bold blue and white panels, accented with red striping. Inside, the seats and door panels got matching color inserts. It was loud, visually, not mechanically. Under the hood, most Sprint Mavericks still came with 6 cylinders. You could get a 302 V8 if you insisted, but even that wasn't tuned for true muscle car glory. This was more about making a visual statement than winning races. Ford actually offered the Sprint theme across several models in 1972, including the Mustang and Pinto, to tie into America's bicentennial spirit. The Maverick's version just happened to be one of the most unusual. Today, they're rare simply because few buyers wanted a compact daily driver dressed like a patriotic float. But for collectors, that oddball paint job and limited production make them standout conversation pieces. 1971 Ford Ranchero GT with 429 Super Cobra Jet. Half car, half truck. All attitude, the Ranchero GT with the 429 Super Cobra Jet was one of the most unexpected muscle machines Ford ever built. The Ranchero started life as a utility vehicle, but by the late 60s and early 70s, Ford was loading it with the same performance hardware found in its muscle cars. The GT trim gave it stripes, badging, and sportier touches, but if you ticked the right boxes, you could get the big 429 SCJ, complete with ram air induction, 375 horsepower rating, and enough torque to haul anything, including itself, down a quarter mile in the low 14s. The visual mashup was bizarre. From the front, it looked like a Torino GT. From the side, you saw the bed. From the driver's seat, you felt like you were in a muscle coupe until you glanced in the mirror and saw open air where a rear window should be. It wasn't built in huge numbers, and most people use them hard, towing, hauling, or street racing, so survivors are scarce. The weirdness here is the combination of workhorse utility with pure performance. It was a pickup that could haul lumber in the morning and line up at the drag strip that night without breaking a sweat. 1966 Ford Galaxy 7-liter. The name says it all, 7 liters of displacement right there in chrome script on the fender. In 1966, Ford introduced the Galaxy 7-liter as a sort of muscle luxury hybrid, aimed at buyers who wanted big block power wrapped in a refined, full-size package. Under the hood sat the 428 cubic inch V8, tuned for smooth but forceful acceleration. It wasn't the highest horsepower rating in Ford's lineup, but the torque was immense, making it feel effortless to drive fast. Paired with either a 4-speed manual or heavy-duty automatic, it could cover ground with surprising urgency for a car this large. The styling was restrained, long, clean lines, stacked headlights, and plenty of bright work. Inside, you got bucket seats, a center console, and upscale materials. It was more likely to be found outside a theater than at a drag strip, but that was the point. Ford only offered the 7-liter nameplate for 1 year, making it a rare sight. The oddity lies in the branding. Most muscle cars boasted aggressive names or performance cues, while this one just quietly announced its engine size in metric, no less. It was subtle, sophisticated, and slightly strange. A gentleman's muscle car that didn't need to shout to get noticed. 1970, Ford Torino, King Cobra prototype. If Ford's goal was to scare Chrysler in NASCAR's Aero Wars, the Torino King Cobra was their sledgehammer. This wasn't a production car, it was a prototype, and it looked like no Torino before or after. The front end was an extended pointed wedge designed purely for slicing air at high speeds. It was so aggressive, it made the already wild Dodge Charger Daytona look almost polite. Under the skin sat Ford's 429 Boss engine, ready to push the car deep into the 200 mph range on a superspeedway. The suspension and chassis were tuned for stability at those speeds, not for boulevard cruising. Ford's NASCAR team tested it, but the project was doomed. Rule changes and a sudden cooling of the Aero War meant the King Cobra never went into mass production. Only a few prototypes exist today, most finished in bright colors with unique nose cones and hidden headlamps. Seeing one in person is surreal. It's a street car body with a full-on race car face, a visual reminder that the line between showroom and speedway was once razor thin. The weirdness? It was a muscle car designed almost entirely in a wind tunnel, built to win races it never got to run. If it had reached production, it might have been the wildest-looking Ford to ever wear a license plate. Ford Falcon Futura Sports Coupe. In 1969, the Falcon was supposed to be Ford's sensible compact, cheap to buy, easy to drive, and aimed at practical buyers. But that year, Ford quietly slipped in a curveball, the Futura Sports Coupe with big block power. From the outside, it didn't look radically different from the 6-cylinder Falcons your neighbor used for grocery runs. But order it right, and you could have a 390 cubic inch V8 stuffed under the hood, with a 4-speed manual and performance rear axle. Suddenly, this economy coupe could smoke its tires and embarrass some Mustangs. Inside, you still got the basics: bench seats, simple gauges, minimal trim. The Falcon wasn't trying to be flashy. That made it the perfect sleeper. Pull up next to a Camaro thinking you were facing a 200-inch 6-cylinder, and you'd be in for a shock when this plain Jane coupe launched like a full-blown muscle car. They didn't build many. Buyers shopping for performance skipped straight to the Mustang or Torino. But for those who knew, the Falcon Futura Sports Coupe was a stealthy alternative, a budget-friendly muscle machine hiding in plain sight. Its weirdness came from that total mismatch between looks and performance. 1972 Ford Capri RS 3100. Most Americans think of the Capri as a small, sporty European import, not a muscle car. But in 1972, Ford's British arm built the RS 3100, and it was far more serious than it looked. Designed for European touring car racing, it came with a high-revving 3.1-liter V6 and a chassis tuned for agility. On paper, 148 horsepower doesn't sound like muscle car territory, but the Capri weighed barely over a ton. That meant it could out-corner and out-accelerate much larger cars, especially on twisty roads. It had a close-ratio 4-speed sport suspension, front and rear spoilers, and alloy wheels, a package meant for speed and control, not comfort. The RS 3100 was also a homologation special, built so Ford could race it. Only about 250 were made, all in bold Sebring yellow with black accents. It was never officially sold in the U.S., which makes it an oddball in Ford's performance family. The weirdness? It's the anti-muscle car, small, nimble, and tuned for European tracks rather than American straight lines. Yet it carried Ford's racing DNA just as much as any Boss Mustang. For collectors, it's a rare blend of Ford engineering and British handling wrapped in a package most people mistake for an economy car. 1964, Ford Fairlane Kode 289 Hypo. If you wanted a lightweight Ford with serious punch in 1964, you didn't have to jump to a big block Galaxy or a Mustang GT350. You could get a Fairlane with the Kode 289 high-performance V8, a small block screamer that turned this mild-mannered sedan into a legit street threat. The Kode 289 was rated at 271 horsepower, which in a car this size was more than enough to make things interesting. It came with a solid lifter cam, heavy-duty valve springs, a high-flow carburetor, and beefed-up internals designed for sustained high RPM. Buyers could pair it with a 4-speed manual and a performance rear axle, turning the Fairlane into something that felt ready to storm a drag strip. From the curb, though, it barely gave away its potential. The styling was restrained, the interior simple, and unless you knew how to decode the fender badges, you'd think it was just another mid-60s commuter car. That made it a perfect sleeper, exactly the kind of machine that could surprise a GTO or Chevelle when the light turned green. Kode Fairlanes were built in limited numbers, mostly overshadowed by the Mustang's later adoption of the same engine. Today, they're rare finds, and the weirdness lies in just how little Ford dressed it up. It was pure muscle hidden in plain sight, relying on the driver's right foot to tell the real story. Ford's muscle car history is full of legends, but it's the misfits, experiments, and forgotten builds that tell you how bold the company could be. From NASCAR prototypes that never raced to grocery getters hiding big block power, these oddballs prove muscle comes in more shapes than anyone expects. Which one of these weird Fords would you actually want in your garage? Drop your pick in the comments, hit subscribe, and keep your eyes open. Because the strangest muscle cars are often the ones nobody talks about.